Sam, I have a question because you're pretty good at this, and you'll slap my hand if you're mad at me. Do you feel like I'm a little too preachy, chastising people for not wanting nice things with Nebraska football?
No, I don't know.
Because
I think I wrote
feel
about this today.
Yeah, I'm very, very interested because I feel like I'm kind of mad, but I kind of laugh it off. Like we have very short memories. You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden, I think they want us to be some people want us to be something that we haven't been for 20 years. So just stay right here. Like, just stay right here. Don't make things up. Stay right here.
So, right. People have very short memories and they also have long ones. And so what they remember about Nebraska football are the best things that were true of Nebraska football in, the years when Nebraska was great. Now, I'll say this, if you're going to bring back all the national title teams all the time, which they do, then, you're asking people to immediately evoke nostalgia. If when you fire an AD, you go into a press conference and the president and the chancellor of the university say, well, I don't know why we can't go back to the 90s, which they did in 2017. You're basically asking the fans to feel that way. So I think some of it is based on there's a lot of people that are still trying to use those players from that era to say, hey, we can still be this. And you were one of those players. And I don't know, maybe sometimes you feel like you're, used in that way as opposed to appreciated. Like it's more, hey, come to the game tonight. You get to see when we were good or whatever it is. But Nebraska is good now. They're good. And I wrote about it today. Like Nebraska fans have become accustomed to, if it's a 31-point win, then they play great. Or it's not a 31-point win and they barely won. And so what you had on Saturday night was a 31-point win that wasn't perfect by any means. It just wasn't. But it was still a 31-point win over a team that's probably going to end up about 6-5 or 7-4 in the Missouri Valley because it's a hard league. And I think you kind of saw it on Isaac Gifford's face. Like he was torn. He was torn between not being happy because the standards are higher and acknowledging the fact that, like, we only gave up 3 points. And Nebraska has not only given up 3 points very often in the last 10 years. And so you can't be too unhappy, right? And so I think there's that tension there that comes when a team is better than it's been in many recent years.
Sam, I mean, that's one of those, like, two things can be true at the same time, right? Like, hey, Nebraska's playing way better football than they have in years, and there's still some things that we know they can do better because we've either seen glimpses of it or flashes of it. Like, I guess it seems like that's really hard for people to wrap their minds around. It's either, hey, they're playing great football and nothing can go wrong, or they didn't look their best, so the sky's falling. Like, is that how it's sort of seemed to you? Because that seems like the two camps people are in.
A little bit, I think so. And I think there's a little bit of that. It's just natural. There were things about the way Northern Iowa was playing where even though they were holding on to the ball for a very long time, they weren't breaking any big plays. And so it's hard to score points when you're content with, 5-yard curl routes and you're really just trying to hope that you get a bust in Nebraska's defense so that you can break a play that really should go for 5 yards but ends up going for 50 because somebody didn't do their job. Nebraska did have a few plays like that on Saturday night, but they didn't go for 50 yards. So, I think people are a little torn too. But now you get to play Illinois. Illinois is ranked. I don't know if they're one of the 25 best teams in the country.
I was going to say, I can't wait for the referendum, depending on how this game turns out, right? It's just kind of what we do.
I guess I would say I was wrong about Illinois because I didn't think they were going to be very good. And they're not bad. Like, their defense is pretty good. And they've got a good receiver, really good receiver, 2 good receivers. And their quarterback's fine. But I thought Indiana would be pretty good, and they are good. They're, in my opinion, for example, I don't have the ballot anymore, but I would have Indiana in the top 25. I would not have Illinois. So Indiana's pretty good, and Nebraska's got to go on the road to play them. And so, you're going to get tested now. It's going to be real, and it's going to be a real thing. I actually think Nebraska beat a pretty good Colorado team. I thought that team was better than its record last year because of the league they played in, and I think they're probably not bad this year. And I think that the Colorado team that I watched play Nebraska hits and plays very, very hard. They may not. Their quarterback is he's very talented and a little bit mercurial, but they play very hard. And so I think they're actually going to be a pretty good team this year. We'll see what happens. But, so I think Nebraska's already got a help. And Illinois, I guess, will be another good one. I mean, again, I think Colorado's probably a better team than Illinois, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Illinois is going to come in here and, take a 14-0 lead in the first quarter. That's possible if you don't play your football right.
Yeah, I was on record after Big Ten Media Days and the 2 days out at Indian Creek when we were doing the PBC with Indiana about the first potential loss. So I'm well aware of Indiana's prowess, but I will say this. I think a lot of how we view the production or productivity or progress of Nebraska has to do with confirming our own thoughts ahead of time, right? So we thought blank about Colorado, so this is how we feel about the win. We thought blank about UNI, so this is how we feel about the win. And I think we've got to get to the point where we actually watch what's happening and formulate opinions that way based on Nebraska. Because if they're going to be their own benchmark, then that's what you have to pit it against, right? Because that's what coaches do, right? If you want to get better, it can't be opponent specific. It has to be about what you're capable of doing. But until we all talk about it from that vantage point, we're going to have these conversations every week about this particular portion of the fan base feeling like this and media feeling like Nebraska's got to be compared to Nebraska getting better. And I think it's not any more complicated than that.
Sure. No, I mean, they play teams and fans are naturally going to want to win. I do think that Matt Rule's vision is a long haul vision. So simultaneously to wanting to win right now. And I feel like they have a team that can win quite a few games this year, not 11, but they can win quite a few. You're also trying to build for the future. So one of the things I would say is that if Nebraska really wanted to win on Saturday night, I don't know, 48-3, they probably could have. There's stuff, there's plays they can call, there's things they can do.
I mean, look at the participation chart.
Yeah. Right. And so, if you're really into, winning this game by 45 points is super important. Obviously, when Indiana played Western Illinois, they felt it was really important to win 77-3, and they did. And maybe that's what Indiana needs. I mean, then they went and beat UCLA 42-13, and again, I would say they played better than a lot of the teams that are ranked ahead of them so far. So, I mean, everybody's kind of going to do what they got to do. I think where Matt Rule's at right now is he knows that there's a lot of veterans on this team, and there's like 10 to 12 guys they're not coming back. And so you've got to find a way to develop the players behind them, especially in non-conference play, because those guys are going to have to play a ton of football next year. And it's one of these deals where you've got to get some guys ready to go, and you don't have to lean on Ty Robinson an entire game. There's going to be a game this year where they probably do, but it's not going to be against Northern Iowa. And so Matt Rule just kind of runs the program a little bit differently than maybe some other coaches would. He's going to put a lot of energy and time into development, which he has done. I think he wants to retain a lot of his players. As we all know, they can't retain all of their players because the roster numbers are going down and some of these guys are going to go, especially in the defensive backfield where some of them aren't playing. But, it's one of these deals where he wants to retain and develop players. And that's how he gets it over time. And so he's got a short-term goal, but also a long-term vision too.
I think it's kind of incredible, right? I mean, Nebraska played without 2 starters in Butler and Mazuka. They had a back that started 2 games that didn't play until the second half. He has the second unit in at the start of the fourth quarter. He's already substituting on defense halfway through the third quarter, and we don't talk about any of that. It's like, oh, ho hum. And I say all that to say, one of his better strengths is what you're talking about. His roster management and moving pieces, playing the long game while still winning, has been pretty impressive. We didn't even give when's the last time 2 starters could not play and nobody really seemed to care at the end of the day? Actually, 3 if you count Ramir and Bayer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yes. So Ramir didn't play in the first half. Again, based on what I've seen on the field, I think Emmett Johnson has earned the opportunity to be.
And he didn't even barely play last week. Like, that guy's pretty good.
No, I know. He's very good. I think it's interesting that he's referred to as the closer, which that's fine with me. He has had a lot of very good fourth quarter runs. I think he just needs to play more. Ramir has always been one of the toughest and hardest working guys on the team. He runs into defenders, and Emmett doesn't run into his men. And that's my perspective. Like, you want Ramir to catch the football, and he's a straight line guy, and if he can get blocks, then he can go. Emmett just makes guys miss, and I just put a high premium on the ability to make people miss. And I think Emmett does that really well. And then Dowdell can really run over people. Well, he hits a hole so hard that it's, there's just people aren't ready to tackle him. But yeah, like I think Nebraska's doing. They have some good young defensive. Princewill didn't play perfectly on Saturday night, but
if he'd have got another penalty, boy, he may have been in some trouble.
Right. He didn't play perfect, but he comes off the edge with a lot of fire, and certainly has the ability and is coming along, and they're playing him a lot. And Kai Wallen does good things when he's out there.
He's a good pass rusher.
Yeah, and they've got some young interior linemen. They're able to kind of rotate in, and we'll see where that goes. Again, you want to try to retain every single defensive lineman you can. It's I don't know that it's the most important position, but it's the position where in November you're going to be glad that you had them all, because it's a position that really wears on a Big Ten defense. And so they've done a nice job of rotating through players and getting guys snaps. And of course, not all of them are going to be stars because you can't play them all at once. But I do think that, again, they're developing a culture on defense of playing a lot of guys. You've got to be ready because they're going to put you on the field. And then a culture of effort. I mean, John Bullock plays so hard, and he did miss a couple tackles. Isaac Gifford plays so hard. Malcolm Hartzog plays hard. He also missed some tackles. But these are players that are constantly running. And I appreciate that. Like, the level of effort that Nebraska puts out on defense is.
We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, is there anything that you've seen out of the first 3 games that has your attention of something that might come back to bite Nebraska throughout conference season? Is there any area of concern for you?
Sure. Special teams, you and I've said that many times, that there's certain things that are hard to control, right? Like, and it's hard to control. It's hard to control the kicker. Like, he's got to just go make the swing. So I thought Alvano did a pretty good job in the most recent game. But at the same time, there's going to be games when it's 45-yard field goal to win. Everybody knows what he did in high school. He's got college. It's not powerlessness, but there's a certain level of, like, well, you just give it to them and to make the kick. I think red zone offense has been pretty good, but there's been some moments down there where I'm sure there's things they would like to do differently. The touchdown percentage probably isn't exactly what they want it to be. Could Dillon have just run that in if he had just stayed out and just outran the defender to the corner on that one play. That's possible. Dylan's faster than I think maybe even he thinks. I don't know.
Sam, Nebraska was
kept on that line.
Sam, Nebraska was 4 for 4 in the red zone. You mean specific
touchdown
to
percentage? Okay. Yeah. So yeah, their red zone offense is. I think I put it in the rewind today. I think it's 71%. Right. So it's not among the best.
Uh-oh.
Did we lose him?
We might have lost.
And that'll change. That changes. But the touchdown percentage is around 51. And what you want it to be is above 70 to 75. That's where Nebraska's best offenses have been. And again, could Dylan have outrun that guy? I think he probably could have. And he tried to cut it back, which he would have scored that way too. But the wonderful field turf monster got it. So, there's things they can improve on. The reality is you got to see him play a series of teams in a row that have the same kinds of rosters, the same kind of NIL funding, the same level of transfers. And, they're going to play in a row. They're going to play Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, and Indiana. I think all of those programs are either peer or just slightly below peer to Nebraska. And then they're going to play several teams that have been better than Nebraska over the last however many years. And we'll get a sense of that. They could go 2-2 in the next 3 games or in the next 4 games. They could go 2-2. They could go 3-1. They could go 4-0. They're not going to go 0-4. But 2-2, 3-1, and 4-0 is kind of where they're at. They could win them all. They could lose one. These are all games that, they're probably going to be favored by 10 or less. They'll be favored probably in every game, and they'll have an opportunity to win each game. They'll have an opportunity to lose each game. So we'll know a lot more about this team over the next month. We'll know a lot more in the next 3 weeks, but we'll know a lot more by the time they finish playing Indiana.
Sam, is there anything that you think Nebraska hasn't shown yet in the non-conference that you expect to see more of by the time they finish this month stretch you're talking about?
I think they'll have defensive wrinkles that we haven't seen. I think that they will have things on offense that we have not seen. And I don't know exactly what those things look like yet, but I do think we're going to see more from the offense. They've shown a lot already. I mean, they put a lot on tape, especially as it relates to Ja'Cory Barney. But it's hard not to watch Carter Nelson and think about what else they could do. And Damon's the former player here, but Carter Nelson, to me, looks like one of the more athletic players that Nebraska's had in some time.
Yeah, I don't know about that as much as I'm happy right now with them playing to his strengths, right? Kind of isolation out in space. Like, just do that. Like, and I think they'll be fine with kind of walking him through the baby portions of that, because so far I just think they're playing to his strengths that way. Don't ask him to do too much for a while, but they got a lot of guys that could play in the slot like that. They just don't have a lot of guys that are 6'5" that are playing in the slot like that.
He's doing things at that height that are rare.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good target.
Yeah, he's really, really, he moves really well for a guy his size, and he can run after the catch. So he's not just a guy that's catching the ball and then falling down because he had a 27-yard catch over the middle. He's able to catch the ball and run. And so, I think we're going to see more with him. I think we're going to see more with Barney. I think we're going to see more with Lloyd. I think they have a lot more planned on offense. Yeah. And they have a very creative offensive coordinator. That guy can draw up a whole bunch of plays. That's one thing that Satterfield's really gifted at. And so they're going to have some opportunities to do some cool stuff, I'm sure. And they got the quarterback who can make the throws. Dylan Raiola has not, he's played very well. He's been perfect. No one expected him to be. But he's made some great throws already in 3 games.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Sam.
Take care.